Let me bring in our News Nation political panel today. Shari Olefson, the CEO of Carnegie Group and author of the new book, Financial Fresh Start, for 5-step plan for adapting and prospering in the new economy, whatever the new economy is. Also joining us, Zachary Karabell, columnist for Reuters and The Atlantic, and Sirius XM Michael Smerconish, who's also an MSNBC contributor. Zachary, I want to start off with you because the Dow is up 172 points. It was up all day. Many people thought we might see some jitters move through the markets, but they obviously, investors, knew something we did not.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm no great believer in the wisdom of markets as a general rule, but in this particular week, if you're going to look for one rational actor, at least in assuming that no matter what happened, that we were not going to default on the debt, and that was the only thing the markets are particularly focused on, right? There's no great love lost or, frankly, much care for the government shutdown. I mean, that is, I think, a massive political issue in this country. It just simply is not one that is animating investors right now. The debt ceiling was.
But I guess the heart of my question is, Fitch was looking at downgrading our credit rating. We saw this happen before where the markets instantly reacted. What was different this time?
Well, first of all, when the S&P downgraded the United States in July of 2011, the result was a really brief equity sell-off, but the fact is rates did not go up. Everything that people said was going to happen when that happened didn't happen. And that's because no matter what a few private rating agencies say, you know, the world really does need U.S. Treasuries for the financial system to function right now. And unless we actually do default systemically, structurally on our debts, it really doesn't matter what these agencies say. It matters what the world does and whether or not there's faith in our credibility.
Well, you know, and Shari, let me bring you in. A lot of people don't have faith in government. We know consumer confidence needs to be high for this recovery to continue. The president has referred to it as being slow, but it is certainly there. The housing market, for example, has been doing incredibly, well, considering all things considered there. But this was one of the things that would have been risk if we'd gone into default.
Yeah. Well, obviously, because if we go into default and the rates rise, they'll rise more significantly than we were anticipating. But the other thing, Tamron, is that folks on the front line are reporting delays in loan applications. So we've got issues with Fannie and Freddie and FHA and VA, and the Department of Agriculture is not approving anything new. And so unless someone had to buy or sell a home right now, they probably wouldn't. There's a large amount of psychology in this now. I mean, thanks to the housing bubble, we've created a nation of sort of amateur real estate investors who are not buying a home anymore. They're buying an investment with limited amount of information, and they're trying to time the market and act like a sophisticated investor. And so they're reacting to all kinds of information like this, and the psychology is not great. I mean, first-time home buyers are down to under 30% now. We'd like to see that closer to 40%. They're beat up by low inventory. They're beat up by, the credit scores they need to have now. And what might happen with this new development today now is we could be establishing a trend in real estate, because if we're looking at new news in December and then January and then February on the debt ceiling and the credit rating, then that's all we need really to create a trend in real estate. Already we're seeing, just in the last week or two, we're seeing less showings in real estate, sort of those forward-looking indicators, less competitive offers, those types of things. And in January, we're going to bump into those new rules under Dodd-Frank that go into effect, which is going to make it even harder for folks to get a loan. So the last thing Senator Cruz needs to be doing is reading The Grinch Who Stole Christmas to us around December.
And Michael, let me bring you in on that. I mean, this started with this faux filibuster, and we see Senator Cruz today. You have, for example, Nancy Pelosi saying the House Republicans have had a chance to sow their oats to let off some steam, was her wording. But Senator Chuck Schumer put it very simply. We're back where we started. I mean, this is basically back where we started. All of this showy attitude, all of this wrangling was all for naught as it relates to Senator Cruz and these House Republicans.
I heard Senator Cruz say in the sound that you played a few moments ago that he's doing this because of all the people who are, quote unquote, suffering under Obamacare. And as you well know, the exchanges have themselves, with some difficulty, just come online. Frankly, the full effect is not going to be felt until 2014, when people can actually purchase and now be enrolled in those insurance plans. And he won't give up that ship. I agree with your other guests that the psychological implications are really weighing down the economy right now. My wife wife is a broker, and she can attest to what you just said in terms of the lack of showings and the phone not ringing the way that it was. My concern is that this deal only gets us into January and February, and we're going to frankly limp along, I fear, until the 2014 election. I don't think we're going to see resolution of any of this until Americans can go out and vote.
But do you believe that the sting, for example, of the polls, I'll go back to one of the things that I thought was a clear game changer, to see those families of service members who were killed and they had to pay their own way to get the body of their loved one. You know, a lot of the conservatives have used the World War II memorial, for example, where those World War II vets could not get in as a showy way to make it on the news. But in reality, all of this, again, was for naught. Those men who showed up to go to that memorial would have been able to go through if a continuing resolution, a clean CR, would have moved forward, which is essentially where we are today.
Well, let's say it this way. The very representatives who were out there stoking that crowd at the memorial were the ones who precipitated, who caused the shutdown to begin with. That's what you're saying. And I think that there will be some accountability. I hope there'll be accountability when Americans can go and vote. And that's the only way we're going to get ourselves out of this. I'm worried about those hyperpartisan districts, but I think the 2014 election is the next opportunity that we have to right this course.
Michael, Shari, Zachary, thank you very much for your time.